Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
Syrian rebels detonate bomb near UN site as Russia warns the West against sabotaging accord. Yemeni security situation deteriorates as fractured army clashes. And Bahraini security forces attack anti-government protesters in Sitra. Mosaic, world news from the Middle East begins now.
Clashes between members of the Free Syrian Army and government forces took place near the Prime Minister's office in Damascus today, hours after an explosion rocked the center of the Syrian capital, Damascus. Activists said clashes between the regime's army and the Free Army erupted in Basatin Kafarsuse, near the Prime Minister's office and the Iranian embassy. Syria's official news outlet said the cause of the blast was an explosive canister placed underneath a petrol truck that was parked behind the hotel housing the UN observers. The Free Syrian Army claimed responsibility for the operation.
على هذا المشهد استفاقت دمشق اليوم.
This is the scene that Damascus awoke to today, a large explosion in the heart of the capital with all sides confirming its occurrence. But stories about its motive, scope, and the targeted location differed. Opposition activist sources confirmed from the beginning that the explosion targeted the building of the Chief of Staff in the area near the Air Force close to Umayyad Square in the capital. The Free Army quickly adopted that version and claimed responsibility for the operation. The Free Army also clarified that an explosive device was detonated at the entrance of the building as a security meeting was taking place to coordinate the activities of the Air Force. On the other hand, the story being told by the regime contains different details. Syria's Al-Ikhbariyya and the official Syrian news agency, Sana, reported that an explosive canister was placed by what it called armed terrorist groups on a fuel truck that was parked behind the Dama Rose Hotel where the international observers are staying. According to these outlets, the operation injured 3 people and caused minor property damage near the center of the blast. The deputy foreign minister went to the site of the explosion, confirming that all members of the observers team are fine and that Syria was unaffected by what he called a criminal act.
From the start, our essential goal was to guarantee the safety of the UN observer mission, and we thank God that this delegation was not hit. Not one member has been hurt during the entire time they've been present on the Syrian territories. But this is yet another criminal act that reveals the aggression that Syria is being subjected to.
Despite the multiple versions of the story of the events in Damascus today, it's now confirmed that the capital is not immune from the events that are taking place in the other parts of Syria. And not only because of this explosion or other recent ones, but since the shelling, clashes, raids and arrests continue to take place in a number of Damascene neighborhoods every day.
Russia is warning the West against sabotaging efforts to bring an end to the unrest in Syria. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow expects a formal answer from Western countries within a matter of days on whether they back the Geneva Accord or not. The Geneva meeting in late June agreed on a plan for a political transition in Syria. The plan did not call on President Bashar al-Assad to step down. Despite that, the United States and its allies have been supporting regime change. Lavrov accuses Western powers of fomenting violence in the Arab country by openly supporting armed groups fighting to overthrow President Assad. Turkey, meanwhile, is deploying new air defense systems near the border with Syria. Ankara has set up a military security base at Zazgin Airport, which is in Gaziantep province. The base is 180 kilometers north of Syria's flashpoint city of Aleppo. Military transportation planes have also been deployed to the base. Reports coming out of Turkey say Turkish soldiers have been sent to the area to protect the airbase. Zazgin Airport was used for the transfer of troops and ammunition during the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq back in 2003.
In response to the kidnapping of Lebanese citizen Hassan Al-Moqdad in Syria, the military wing of the Al-Moqdad clan kidnapped a number of Syrians in Lebanon, saying they are members of the Free Syrian Army. It confirmed that kidnappings will be ongoing until their son is released. Al-Moqdad's military wing also warned the Free Syrian Army of surprises in the next few hours if kidnapped Hassan al-Moqdad is not freed.
Hassan is a man known to the entire world. He is a peaceful man, and like his family said, he doesn't know how to use a hunting rifle. We have documents showing that he is in Syria. The reason behind his visit to Syria is financial and judicial, but this is irrelevant. It's true that we are the military wing, but this is not all of us. We came here today to send a message. We are not threatening anyone. You, the Free Army, are holding one of our people. You need to fight the regime with dignity. You have no business with us, and we have no business with you. Your issues have nothing to do with Hassan Salim al-Moqdad.
The Moqdad family laid down its conditions, and as soon as the 24-hour deadline expired, what was called the military wing of the Lebanese clan went to the media. And in the same fashion as the Free Syrian Army, it released a video showing the clan's flag, with gunmen questioning kidnapped members of the Free Army.
What's your name?
My name is Mohammed Musa Isa.
Where are you from?
I'm from Daraa.
What part?
I'm from the Karak area.
What do you do?
I work for the Free Syrian Army.
What's your rank?
I'm a captain.
What's your job?
I mainly provide the Free Syrian Army with members and weapons.
Every Syrian in Lebanon is assumed innocent by the Al-Moqdad family, but it plans to escalate its actions, threatening that the kidnappings will continue until Hassan al-Moqdad is released. And so far they have continued, and the clan is being supported now by the Zaitar, Jafar, and Shams clans, and other Beqa Valley clans.
We started by giving them 24 hours. We started our work and will continue whether it's 1 day, 1 week, or 1 month, or whether we keep 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, or 10,000 detainees. We have no problem. We're focusing on Hassan now, but we might have a different goal later.
Development and Liberation Bloc Member of Parliament, Ghazi Zaitar, visited the Moqdad Association, saying he came to stand in solidarity with his cousins, viewing the incident as a reaction to the events in Syria and the kidnappings by those he described as the sabotaging criminal army, the Free Syrian Army. An attack struck the southern Afghan city of Herat, killing 18 people. The city's police chief said a motorcycle bomb was remotely detonated in a local market. Meanwhile, Afghan President Hamid Karzai said that he and his Pakistani counterpart, Asif Ali Zardari, have agreed to send a joint military team to investigate the cross-border shelling. The cross-border shelling and the incursion of militias have always been a source of tension between the two countries, with both sides accusing each other of failing to contain the violence. In a statement issued to the BBC, the spokesman for the Yemeni Military Affairs Committee, General Ali Saeed Abeid, said that the suspects accused of attempting to storm the Defense Ministry are soldiers from the Republican Guard's 2nd Mountain Infantry Brigade, and that they will stand a military trial. Abeid further said that the forces in charge of protecting the Defense Ministry have arrested 62 soldiers, describing them as mutineers who are protesting the Yemeni president's decision to incorporate the 2nd Brigade into the Southern Military Command.
It was a mutiny on all levels. This is how the spokesman for the Yemeni Military Affairs Committee, General Ali Saeed Abeid, described the security developments in Sana'a. Hundreds of soldiers loyal to the Republican Guard force attacked the headquarters of the Defense Ministry and clashed with its security guards. This attack comes after President Abd Abu Mansur Hadi issued an order to incorporate 7 Republican Guards brigades, led by the former President Saad Ahmed Ali Abdullah Saleh, into a presidential protection force. On the other hand, a Republican Guard spokesman denied any connection to the operation and accused what he described as elements outside the military institution of carrying out a plot to ignite strife between the armed forces and distort the image of the Republican Guard.
Opponents
of the former Yemeni president said the incident marks the beginning of a military coup d'etat led by Saleh's relatives and supporters against President Abdrabbu Mansur Hadi, especially considering that it took place while the president was abroad. Sources close to the presidential office said that President Hadi has cut short his visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and returned to Yemen to deal with the issue. In light of the unfolding events, forces loyal to the popular uprising and supporters of tribal leader Sadiq al-Ahmar were placed on alert and deployed north of the Yemeni capital in anticipation of any military developments. Meanwhile, a heavy military presence was seen around the defense ministry, President Hadi's home, and the Yemeni central bank, amid a tense atmosphere and fears of dragging the country into civil war.
Anti-government protesters in Bahrain come under a fresh attack as they stage another rally there. The protest in Sitra was organized by Amal Islamic Action Society. Demonstrators held pictures of Amal's leaders and chanted slogans against the regime. Saudi-backed forces used tear gas to disperse them. Bahrain has been rocked by popular protests since last February. Scores of people have been killed and hundreds more injured in the regime crackdown. Saudi Arabia has also been sending in troops to help the regime crush the dissent. The U.S. Declaration of Independence guarantees all men the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These very basic and fundamental rights sit at the very core of the American Constitution, but over the past decade, people in the U.S. have witnessed systematic decay and gross violations of these universal and God-given privileges.
Since Washington declared its so-called war on terror after the 2001 attack on the Twin Towers, there have been numerous cases of misconduct by U.S. authorities undermining laws set forth by the American Constitution. The Muslim community in the U.S. has been specifically targeted and discriminated against in this context. American Muslims have been subjected to Islamophobia, illegal surveillance, and eavesdropping. There have been a number of lawsuits against the government over the ill treatment of Muslims in the U.S. Take the class action lawsuit in Orange County, California. A group of Muslims there sued the Federal Bureau of Investigation for sending informants to spy on them. The case revolves around the actions of Craig Montel, who says he posed as a Muslim convert at the request of the FBI to collect information at the county's mosques. The American Civil Liberties Union and the Council on American Islamic Relations joined the suit that accuses the agency of engaging in a dragnet investigation that indiscriminately targeted Muslims based on their religion, planted bugs in offices and homes, and listened in on private religious conversations. But the federal judge in this case decided to throw out the suit. His reasoning? State secrets privilege, an easy excuse often used by U.S. agencies to avoid persecution in their so-called counterterrorism efforts.
In reality, we have too much secrecy in the society. What are they afraid of people knowing?
The judge in this case argued, and this is an exact quote, the state secrets privilege may unfortunately mean the sacrifice of individual liberties for the sake of national security. Cormac Carney reached his decision after reviewing confidential declarations filed by top FBI officials. He said after reviewing the documents, he felt the evidence would compromise U.S. national security. But the public will never know what that information was and whether it really was a grave threat to national security.
That the United States is a country with systemic racial problems and injustice, and that is part and parcel of the society.
The Department of Justice attorney defending in the case told Carney in court the state secrets privilege could be seen as unfair or harsh, but it was necessary for the greater public good. ACLU attorney, however, argued that the government should not be allowed to shut the courthouse door simply by citing national security. It's contrary to the basic notion that the judiciary determines what the law is and holds the government to it, he said. You're exempting huge swaths of government activity to judicial oversight.
Perhaps we need less secrecy so we can get to the bottom of things. So I don't buy it. It's another way for people to lose their freedoms in this society. It's another way to demonize people who happen to be Muslim, who happen to be different.
The summit of the Islamic Cooperation Council concludes today in the holy city of Mecca. During the opening session, Saudi King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz called for the establishment of a center for dialogue between different Muslim doctrines in Riyadh. Meanwhile, delegates at the summit discussed issues impacting the Muslim world, with the Syrian crisis at the forefront.
Here, at the Sakab Palace, in Saudi Arabia's holy city of Mecca, leaders from around the Islamic world are meeting in the birthplace of the divine message that unites all Muslims. Before the start of the opening session of the emergency summit that came under the banner of Islamic unity, presidents, kings, and emirs convened at the site of the meeting. Saudi King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz welcomed them side by side with Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. As for the summit, it comes during a critical time for the Islamic nation, and it aims to set aside the disagreements that have recently found fertile grounds in the region.
A nation looks up to its leaders, who must rise to their historical responsibilities to overcome these hard times. It has become clear that the Islamic world cannot continue its current approach. It is essential for our Islamic world to be one of the pioneers of our era, especially since Muslims constitute a quarter of the world's population, and God granted them resources, abilities, and the potential.
In the face of the impeding dangers facing the Islamic nation, especially those coming from Muslims themselves and from within their political entities, the Saudi king presented the proposal to bring Muslim sects together. The step aims to promote dialogue between Muslims instead of strife and feuds.
From this basis, I propose establishing a center for dialogue between Islamic sects to reach a common point. The center is to be based in the city of Riyadh, and its members are to be assigned by the Islamic Cooperation Council Summit.
أما الملفات الأبرز على طاولة قادة الدول الإسلامية فيأتيها في الصدارة تلك الأزمة المستعرة.
As for the most important issues for the Muslim nations, they were represented by the crisis that is leading to a war on Syrians through foreign intervention, both secretly and publicly. However, the step adopted by the Islamic Cooperation Council's emergency summit in Mecca was controversial. The summit decided to suspend Syria's membership at the council, a decision that was absolutely rejected by Iran because it views the move as an escalation of the situation in Syria. Iran confirmed its firm stance against the war declared on Syria. Algeria also objected to the decision. The country is still expressing firm reservations over any decision that includes political, economic, or diplomatic sanctions on Syria.
The United States does not believe that Israel has made a decision on whether to attack Iran over its nuclear program. This, according to U.S. Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, speaking at a press conference with the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff General Martin Dempsey. Panetta reiterated Washington's view that military action should be a last resort and stressed that there is still time for sanctions and diplomatic pressure to be effective. General Dempsey cautioned that an Israeli military strike would only serve to delay Iranian atomic development.
I don't believe they've made a decision as to whether or not they will go in and attack Iran at this time. Obviously, they're an independent, they're a sovereign country. They'll ultimately make decisions based on what they think is in their national security interests. But I don't believe they made that decision at this time. The reality is that we still think there is room to continue to negotiate. These sanctions, the additional sanctions have been put in place They're beginning to have an additional impact on top of the other sanctions that have been placed there.
What I'm telling you is based on what I know of their capabilities, and I may not know about all their capabilities, but I think that it's a fair characterization to say that they could delay, but not destroy, Iran's nuclear capabilities.
Amid growing speculation over fallout from a potential strike against Iran, public concern over the availability of bomb shelters and gas masks is increasing. Tens of thousands of residents have arrived at their local distribution centers over the past 2 weeks to renew the masks already in their possession. Although, according to sources at the Home Front Command, just 53% of the population have the protective gear. Authorities are warning that supplies are running short and that there will be only enough for 60% of the population. And in related matters, 1/4 of all Israelis are estimated to lack access to safety rooms, and just 30% of homes have reinforced shelters. Contractors are reporting that they've been inundated with orders to build and improve residents' bomb shelters. On the backdrop of heightened threats, the government today is holding a marathon meeting to discuss the defense budget for the next 5 years. Gathering at the Army's general headquarters in Tel Aviv, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told his cabinet that the government needs to address the dramatic changes taking place here in the region. In many ways, the fate of the national budget will determine the fate of the entire national budget. Joining me here in the studio to discuss today's meeting is IDA's Aryeh O'Sullivan. Aryeh.
Thank you, Aaron. In the one corner are the generals and the officers from the defense establishment with their prophecies of gloom and doom. And in the other are the officials from the Treasury who need to cut 12 billion shekels to balance the proposed national budget due to dropping state revenues. In the middle sit the ministers who are going to have to decide how much to spend on defense for the next 5 years. Representatives of the defense establishment say their efficiency steps have saved some 9 billion shekels since 2007. But finance ministry officials scoff at those figures and say the defense had actually received over 13 billion shekels extra in supplements during this period. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu opened by saying that his government had to ensure that the security citizens of the state have enjoyed in the past 3 years of his term continues. He said they do not have to just decide how much funding the defense would receive, but also where to direct its long-range planning. It's clear the defense establishment needs to invest in greater protection from missiles and against cyber attacks. Financing this could come from within by diverting funding from its large conventional forces, cutting tanks and artillery, for example, or from without by increasing taxes or cutting from other ministries. It was the opening salvo in this battle for the budget, and no decisions were expected today. But as the Prime Minister mentioned, he wanted all of his ministers to be part of the discussion so that it weighs in their minds when their ministry budgets come up for debate.
Turning to Cairo, where Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi demonstrated authority over the once powerful military by awarding medals to 2 senior generals that he pushed into retirement. One of the former military leaders was Field Marshal Hussein Tantawi, who headed the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces following the arrest of former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak. Tantawi saluted Morsi and warmly thanked him for the honor. Under the Mubarak regime, Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood Party was declared illegal, and its members were targeted by the Egyptian army.
In Israel, the Netanyahu government is looking into the occupation army's request to increase the defense budget next year. Meanwhile, the Israeli Knesset will hold an exceptional session on Thursday during its summer recess to appoint Avi Dichter as Home Front Defense Minister after he resigned from the Knesset.
Israel and the Qadima party awoke to an arrangement made overnight. Avi Dichter, member of the Knesset and former chief of the Israeli intelligence, surprised his party by resigning from the Knesset. He is joining the Israeli government by becoming the Home Front Defense Minister. Dichter's move comes following a meeting with the head of the Israeli government, Benjamin Netanyahu, and his defense minister, Ehud Barak, late last night. Experts say that Dichter's decision to join the Netanyahu and Barak government is a new indicator that Israel is close to waging an attack on Iran as part of its attempt to foil the latter's nuclear program. Netanyahu, Barak, and Dichter are a dangerous trio. The trust between them dates back over 30 years, when the three served as part of the elite unit of the Israeli army, Sayeret Matkal. This is probably what led military analysts and others to believe that Israel is about to wage a dangerous military operation they've described as major. An additional sign of the Israeli preparations to wage new wars is the Israeli government's scheduled session to discuss an increase of the occupation army's budget to 64 billion shekels.
Iran expressed confidence that Israel will not attack its nuclear facilities. A spokesman for the Interior Ministry in Tehran said that the country is not taking Israel's recent statements seriously. On the other hand, Iranian Defense Minister Ahmad Vahidi said that Tel Aviv's threats point to what he described as the weakness and stupidity of its leaders.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible by grants from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, the Wincoat Foundation, the Firedoll Foundation, and by support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news, read our blog, get transcripts of past shows, and more at linktv.org/mosaic. Airwaves, a global channel of uncompromising stories, world news, documentaries, entertainment, and culture. Link TV, connecting you to the world. For more information, visit linktv.org.